First up, though, let's continue with our conversation about the European Super League plan. 12 top European clubs, 6 clubs in England. And 6 clubs from the Spanish and Italian leagues, notably no one from France or Germany taking part. But as we've heard revealed by Rob Harris from Associated Press a little bit earlier in the show, we are talking about a new Super League with €4 billion of funding behind it. And they are facing, though, a big threat back because they want to basically take over their own Super League, leave the Champions League. Fight back has begun from not just UEFA, who run the Champions League, but also FIFA, who run the World Cup, and the Premier League, saying any club and any players who are part of the European Super League will be banned from all of their tournaments. Legal action has already started against that move. So what's going to happen? Let's talk to Baroness Hoey. Kate Hoey, of course, who's a independent peer and former sports minister, who joins us right now. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, I know you love your football for many, many years. What do you make of this European Super League plan? It's been condemned by the Prime Minister. He said it would be very damaging for football. Many fans, many senior, well-known players, former players, Gary Neville, ex-Man United in England, condemning it as well. Do you think it's really the disaster for grassroots football everyone's complaining it is?
Well, I think if anything else had been announced by anybody and had had such huge amounts of opposition from practically everybody in the country, it would be finished, it would be over. But of course, football sees itself on a different plane. And it's very interesting when you look at the 6 clubs that have agreed to do this. There's only one of them that are actually British owned, Tottenham. All the others are either American or Russian. And I think it just is clear that they have no care or interest in the history of football in this country, the huge importance of the fans, and the way in which our system has worked so well that allows the little club right at the bottom to have that aspiration to get right to the top. And we've seen that, over the years happen. So I do think that I still have got a feeling, maybe wrongly, that it just won't happen, and that it will actually be it's a way of using putting some more.
It's a negotiating position.
A negotiating with UEFA, because some of those clubs think that they're not getting enough money out of the Champions League.
But this is the thing. We're talking about, they're foreign owned. They don't care about the history of the community. These are, at the end of the day, and I know that's not how fans see them. I mean, people who've grown up in football is their passion, their life, the heart of their community. It's what weekends, particularly for many years, have all been about. It's how you first identify yourself. If you look on social media, one of the first things people will say about themselves is, which team they support. It is a huge part of British culture. But we are talking about privately owned businesses, and a lot of the facilities that people enjoy, they're funded by those foreign billionaires everyone criticises all the time. But this idea that UEFA and FIFA and the Premier League care so much about the fans, and it's not about the money for them, but this awful European Super League are all about money. All of football right now is only about the money, isn't it? Is this any different? We've got big clubs, they want to make more money. Has anyone got any right to stop them doing this?
Well, I think the issue is, of course, there is no equality likely to happen if there's this kind of league goes ahead. I mean, the Premier League at the moment, at least some of the money does trickle down through to the smaller clubs. But it's, this question of the fans. I mean, I think what's been interesting is during the COVID situation, of course, there have been no fans in the stadiums, and they've got quite clever at, getting artificial fans, noise and music. And I suppose what the Super League are thinking now is that it doesn't really matter if fans aren't going to attend, because if you're going to be traveling around on a Wednesday evening, how many really genuine supporters are going to be able to fly across to wherever the matches are being held?
They wouldn't even be allowed to do it right now.
Well, at the moment, yes, that would happen. So I think really it shows a very callous attitude that they don't actually need the fans anymore. There isn't that need in terms of the money side of things. And I just hope, this is a real test now of who governs football and who governs our sport generally in this country. Because if we're serious, and if the Prime Minister is serious about what he said, and I'm sure he meant it, then we really do have to make some changes. And of course, the FA could immediately say that any club who joins this league will no longer be able to take part in FA Cup competitions. And the Premier League should simply say, well, too bad. If you really want to do this, then go off and do it. We will carry on. And of course, the Premier League is the richest league. It's even richer than the Champions League. There is a loss to them.
But yes, exactly. But only because they've got the big clubs that people will pay, not just in this country. There are huge subscriptions to BT Sport and Sky and whoever else shows these matches, and around the world. I mean, if you go anywhere around the world now, you will see Premier League football on televisions. We talk about the fans, but they're not just worrying about the fans who are paying to go to the stadiums in this country at some point back again. They're worried about they care about the fans who around the world who are paying a fortune in their subscription rights, and indeed also for the merchandise around the world. But this is the thing: if we do end up seeing these clubs leaving the Premier League and players who play for this league not able to play in the Euros or in the World Cup for their countries, that will be the decision of UEFA, FIFA, and the Premier League. That will be them damaging their own tournaments. That will be them punishing the fans.
Absolutely, Julie. And that is what I'm saying. This is a real test of who actually cares about sport in terms of football in the country. And, players themselves, of course, they're earning a lot of money, and a lot of this extra money would go to those players. So the players themselves, I think, are going to have to come out, as we've seen very well, some of them over the last 24 hours coming out and saying how they feel about it. And of course, many of them aspire to play for their country. That's a huge, huge thing for a player, in terms of their career, to be able to play for their country. And if that is taken away from them, then we are only left with this kind of plastic league. I think it was described very well in the Daily Mail today about being a plastic league. If you can't be put out of it, and you're always going to be there, then that makes it very, very unlike what we all see as sport being. And the other clubs who would still be left in the Premier League, well, they will then start to be much better known across the world. And it's interesting that some of the clubs that are actually saying they're in this Super League, they're not even doing particularly well this year. So
no, it is. Yes, let's leave Arsenal out of this, shall we? Baroness Hoey. We'll have to leave that. Kate Hoey, of course, a former Labour MP, former Minister for Sport, and an independent peer. Thank you so much for joining us as always.